On January 15th, 2015, a player known as Zobros was getting ready to upload his first original Geometry Dash level. It was a pretty standard effect level. In fact, he doesn't even think it's that good. However, fate disagrees with him. There will be hundreds of rated levels and thousands more on the servers, imitating this one map. In fact, it's gonna get so out of hand that trends will spawn within themselves. Levels will be made 10 years later using this level's blueprint. When Zobros hits upload, the 9 Circles Epidemic will begin. When 9 Circles was released, it immediately became the most popular level in Geometry Dash. There were multiple videos with hundreds of thousands, if not millions of views. The level on the server today has 66 million downloads and over 3 million likes, making it the 10th most liked level ever. This was not new though. There were many effect levels that were flash in the pan, so nobody saw this as anything special. That begs the question though as to how all of this started. Usually, stories like this begin with a patient 0, but this time, we actually need to look at patient 1. Super Pizza Luigi, now known as MK Comic, was a small creator with 3 creator points to his name. Assumedly, he saw how popular 9 Circles was and wanted to make a version of his own. He used a song by the same composer, but to make it feel different, he made the level pink. His level isn't really any different from 9 Circles. The gameplay is different, but it has the same aesthetic down to the blocks used to decorate it. Regardless, the level was published to the servers 30 days after 9 Circles, and the results speak for themselves. Just like its predecessor, Fairy Dust became a massive hit, garnering 8 million downloads and 400,000 likes. The people wanted more 9 Circles content, and that's exactly what they got. Fairy Dust was a big wake-up call to upcoming creators. MK Comic proved that if you wanted to make it big, the easiest path to success was to make a 9 Circles level. 2 months later, the Realistic was released, using the same layout as 9 Circles, but with another color. Softable's variant also garnered 1 million downloads and a feature from RobTop. The first time didn't mean anything. The second time could have been a stroke of luck, but the same thing happening for a third time was a pattern, and this time it did not go unnoticed. The month of May was a very loud message to the community. The 9 Circles Epidemic was here to stay, and there was nothing you could do about it. Living in this period was like being around during the gold rush. It was a phenomenon that anyone could participate in, but only a few lucky creators could really reap the rewards. It became so popular to make your own 9 Circles level that Dorabay himself made Dorabay Basic 10 into a 9 Circles level. You truly could not get away from these in 2015. 9 Circles is now the biggest level series in the game, and it'll stay that way until present day. Now, before we go any deeper into this rabbit hole, there's a question that you're probably yelling at me to answer, and that question is... I mean, it's a great question. The 9 Circles trend was not only widespread, but it's also a phenomenon that has never happened again. There have been plenty of influential levels, but none have ever had this much reach. Surprisingly, the answer is pretty simple. It can get boiled down into one word: accessibility. To explain what I mean, let's open up the level editor.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, please welcome today's host, Lation!
Have you ever wanted to be a Geometry Dash creator? Has it ever annoyed you that you don't have that UFO that nobody likes? Well, fret not, dear audience member, because today I will show you how to follow the herd and make your own 9 circles effect. To make the structure, you are going to need these 2 slope objects. One of these can turn into whatever color you'd like, and the other one will always be black. You want to put these slopes adjacent to each other and alternate them until you complete the shape that you want. Once you've done that, set the colored slopes to the first 4 color channels. The colors are done with simple pulses. Set all of the backgrounds and object colors to black and use a pulse trigger to make it flash whatever color you'd like. Now set these triggers up to flash each individual color channel in quick succession. Throw in a few occasional background flashes, and you're done. Congratulations! You just made your own 9 circles level. Now go and make your own featured level, kid. Now, notice how I explained how to build this effect that took the world by storm in just a few minutes. That's why there were so many of these levels. You didn't need much, if any, experience in building to do this. This is the Geometry Dash editor in update 1.9. It's a lot less advanced than what we have today. This is the trigger section of the editor. All you have are 4 color triggers and some small, insignificant effects you can do with your icon. Now, let's look at the trigger tab today. Yeah. This is why you don't see a trend like 9 circles anymore. The levels that are cutting edge are so complicated that it would take hundreds of hours to even understand how it was made. Most of these assets were manually made as well, so you also have to be a very talented artist. This is why 9 circles is a once-in-a-lifetime phenomenon. The game has evolved so much that it's simply no longer possible to build 100 aperture clones. Instead, there are multiple creators who use their own creative vision to create their own unique experience. Now that you have a basic understanding of why this happened, it'll be a little easier for you to keep up with what's about to happen. In June of 2015, there were rumblings of a potential new hardest level in Geometry Dash. We know this level today to be Bloodbath. The level's verifier was an American player named Riot, but his top rival at the time was Cyclic, and he was not happy that he was about to be one-upped. His nemesis was making a level that would solidify him as the greatest of all time. What Cyclic made over the summer, though, looked really familiar. That's right. Much like its predecessors, Sonic Wave is a 9 circles level, but there's one major difference that sets it apart from the rest. It is incredibly difficult. Overnight, this level became a huge success. Not only did it use the trend that was setting the world on fire, but it's also the new hardest level in Geometry Dash. However, unbeknownst to Cyclic, the level being verified was only the beginning of this very convoluted story. Sonic Wave was so difficult that people accused Cyclic of cheating, which ended up being true. This meant that while Sonic Wave was on the servers, nobody had ever legitimately completed it. The highest profile level in the game didn't have a single victor. 1 year and a major game update later, and the level has still not been verified. Tens of people are trying their best to beat it, but one of them is Riot, who we mentioned earlier in this story. He wants to finish what his rival couldn't, so he teamed up with top creator Vibrant to make a visually updated version called Sonic Wave Infinity. At the exact same time, 2 of the game's most respected effect creators, Funny Game and Serpunge, made their own Sonic Wave remake for a player named Mifui called Sonic Wave Rebirth. If you thought 2 remakes was too many, Manix and LaserBlitz built Auditory Breaker, another remake of the exact same level with the exact same gameplay. In late 2016, Sonic's verified Sonic Wave on the original 1.9 copy by Cyclic, meaning all of those copies were for absolutely nothing. So, does that mean we're done now? No, of course we're not. What are you, dumb? In 2018, years after Sonic Wave was released, Penuto and Enlex make Generic Wave, another Sonic Wave remake, but in the style of a level you'd find in like early 2.1. Don't ask me why this exists. I have no idea. Remember Sonic Wave Infinity? Well, for some reason, everyone wanted to beat this level now too. For the third time, Sonic Wave was completely redecorated by AP Team, and it was buffed so much it took even longer to verify than the original. Sonic Wave Infinity went through 8 verifiers in over 4 years. And in 2021, almost 6 years after Cyclic built the level, Sonic Wave Infinity was verified by Zanny after getting a good luck message from Among Us. For those of you keeping track at home, there are 6 notable versions of Sonic Wave out there, while the level itself is a clone of 9 Circles. I don't know what's funnier, there being tens of hundreds of levels flooding the servers that all look the exact same, or the fact that there is a clone of a clone of a clone spanning almost 6 years. Covering these levels is a headache. So, what are 9 Circles levels like now? After 2015, the overall quality of 9 Circles levels would stay pretty stagnant. Levels between this time period were alright, but they weren't reinventing the wheel either. In 2017, we got Bausha Vortex, which is the level that the trend desperately needed. This level started the bridge to the modern era of 9 Circles levels. There's a drastic improvement in visual quality, which takes advantage of Update 2.0's features. Bausha is one of the first levels to use new objects, which is such a refreshing change. It also uses more than 4 color channels. This is finally the point in time where 9 Circles levels started to slow down. In 2019, we got our first top 10 since Sonic Wave itself in Arctic Lights. This is the first time I would say a level looks pretty good for today's standards. We're finally getting rid of the rule that all 9 Circles levels must have the exact same sequences. The era of cube, ship, ball, wave, ending cube is finally behind us. Nowadays, 9 Circles levels barely resemble the original. Levels like Tengu Wind feel more like an homage to the level than a strict copy, which is definitely a good thing. And that's where 9 Circles levels are today. They still exist, but they're a lot more unique than they were in 2015, and a lot of them are pretty enjoyable experiences. That is not where our story ends, though. There's one more level that I would be remiss if I didn't talk about. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the part where I talk about Sakupen Circles. Sakupen Circles is an old impossible level that dates back to 2015. The level was famous for its showcase by Tosh Deluxe, a YouTuber who made his career by sharing levels that were physically impossible. Other than the video, Sakupen Circles didn't really have that much going for it. The level was one of a million that were impossible, so for years, it faded into obscurity. Fast forward to 2020, and the community has revisited these long-lost impossible levels. The first one to get some attention was Silent Clubstep, which was recently updated to no longer be undoable. While the level was getting verified, other levels like it started getting some attention. This is where Sakupen Circles comes in. This level was not good. It was not balanced, nor was it visually appealing. Despite that, it was theoretically possible, which kept the level alive. 2 redecorations, a rebalancing, and some verification drama later, Sakupen Circles was miraculously verified in 2021. This level's legacy will be that it was a proving ground for upcoming top players. Since the level was so short, it was looked at as a way to get yourself into the top player conversation. Even as a top 10, the level had over 50 victors, which is highly abnormal for something of its difficulty. 4 years later, and it still sits inside of the top 30, which is really impressive for how old it is. Nine Circles is one of the most interesting Geometry Dash levels because of its legacy. Not only did it spawn some of the most popular levels, but it also represents a time in the community that's almost lost. Nine Circles came from a time when people started pushing boundaries. It started with levels like this, where a single idea was enough to put the entire community into a frenzy, and it evolved into maps being made by unbelievably talented artists and creators. When I call Nine Circles an epidemic, I don't say that as a negative thing. While the levels were pretty stale after a while, their importance to the community cannot be overlooked. It gave us some of the most important moments in Geometry Dash, and the rich history that it brought needs to be forever appreciated. Hello! I knew it would be a while since I would do this again, but I was kind of not preparing for it to be this long. I'm going to talk a lot more about what my plans for the channel's future are, but for now, I just want to say thank you so much for watching all of this. I assume you did, and thank you for still supporting me after all these years. I'm going to try and make an effort to be more active, but it's going to require some changes, and I'll talk about what those changes are in a future video coming really soon. For now though, thank you for watching, and I hope you have a wonderful day.